Across the South Pacific Ocean lies Tonga, a Polynesian nation that is currently regarded as one of the few remaining monarchies in Polynesia. Tonga is a tropical country that developed from volcanic eruptions much like other Pacific Island nations. Over time, ash and hardened lava accumulated and built up out of the waters, eventually forming island formations, which in turn grew to be a sustainable inhabited island to vegetation, botanicals, mammals, and most importantly, its people, known as Tongans. However, how did Tonga originate? What do we know about the origins of Tonga, and how did its people come to settle there? This is Shania, and we will discuss the two possible explanations to the question in this film. How did Tonga come to be? Legends and mythology are the first traditional and spiritual component that is important to Tonga and the Pacific Islands. In addition, we'll discuss the historical settling that we gravitate to in our current modern day. Without prolonging our intro any further, we will let the film speak for itself, and Zachary will take over to cover the legends belief of how Tonga was created.
Tongaloa, the god of art and invention, was hungry for fish. Looking down from his home of Polotu, he casted his great turtle hook, which went down to the sea below, eventually catching something heavy. He pulled, but could not bring the hook up. Looking down, he saw an enormous rock. He kept pulling until the rock tip broke the surface. Then the fishing line snapped, creating islands. The great Tongaloa Matua then wanted to create something to live on the islands, so he called his two sons, Tongaloa Tafunga and Tongaloa Etuma Tupua. The two sons sat next to their father. Tongaloa sat down, the wood he was carving, and shook down the shavings to mix into the water. Then told his sons to become brown plovers and go down to tell him what happened. They flew down and saw only wood shavings floating in the sea. Each day Tongaloa kept putting wood shavings into the ocean, and each day the sons went down to see what happened. But day after day there was nothing. Until one day there were islands. Matua's son said, "What beautiful islands you have created." Then Tongaloa Matua gave them seeds to plant on the islands. The seeds grew into creeper vines. The sons pecked at the roots until it split into two, which then the roots quickly rotted. They were told to go back and check the warm, damp place where the roots were. They went back and found a big, juicy white worm. They pecked at this worm. The worm split into two. From the top came a man named Kohai. The lower part became a man named Kuao. The plover felt something on his beak. He shook his head when a third piece came off. This became a third man called Momo. Very pleased with what they created, they named the islands Ueki, the first islands inhabited with man. The first men of Tonga started a long line of the earliest rulers, the Tui Tongas. Kohai was the first man, but he came from a worm. Ahoe was the first true man, born from a beautiful woman, and Tongaloa, creating the first line of divine Tongan kings. Ahoe is considered to be the first Tui Tonga. He lived from around 950 AD. He was half divine and half human. His mother was Ailaheve Ve'epopua, and his father was Tongaloa. There was an ironwood tree that would tease Tongaloa. It scraped the clouds, allowing geckos to climb up and dared Tongaloa to climb down from it. He climbed down and saw a beautiful woman, Ailaheve. He started to visit her often, missing her when he was back in the sky, but on Earth he would miss his sky family. He later stopped visiting as often, then none at all. Ailaheve found out she would have a child, and named him Ahoe. When he grew up, he wanted to visit his father. This journey would be dangerous, so Ailaheve put sandalwood oil on him and wrapped him in tapa cloth over him, and gave him instructions that would protect him. But when he was traveling up, his stepbrother saw him and hated him, thinking that their father would favor him more, so they killed him by chopping his head off and eating his body. Later, Tongaloa, Ahoe's father, learned of his killing and was enraged. He ordered his sons to get his head and put it in the sacred kapa bowl, then ordered them to vomit into it. All night the brothers stood around that bowl. At dawn, Ahoe emerged from the bowl. Tongaloa then ordered all his sons to earth and pointed to Ahoe as their ruler.
Throughout history, stories have played a huge role in shaping who we are. From ancient myths about gods and heroes to local legends passed down through generations. These tales often explain where we come from and what we value as a culture. They're more than just entertainment. They carry lessons, beliefs, and traditions that connect people across time. This brings us to our first interview question. As to a UH student, do you think that legends and mythology are important for traditions? Why or why not?
Hi, I'm Matt Scalapia Jr. I'm currently a sophomore at UH Manoa. I think legends and mythology are important for traditions because it helps keep traditional values, beliefs, and history alive. For one, they pass down lessons, explain origins, and give people a sense of identity and connection to their ancestors. They also help preserve and strengthen traditions by keeping stories and meanings alive through generations. Lastly, stories are shared from one generation to the next, which keep traditions alive and meaningful. They remind us of who we are, where we come from, and what our community stands for. Without legends, many traditions would lose their purpose and connection to the past.
With the great opinions Ethan gathered and Zachary's presentation of Tonga's legend creation story, we can now move into the historical perspective of how it was created and settled. It can be concluded that Tonga's historical settlement is rooted from the Lapita expansion. The Lapita expansion took place between 2500 to 2000 BCE, starting with East Asian countries that slowly trickled down towards Southeast Asia, beginning with the Philippines, then splitting to the Marianas in 1500 BCE. The settlers continued down towards the Bismarck Archipelago in 1350 BCE, and in 1000 BCE, some split up to go to Palau. Although this time the Austronesian cultures grew rapidly and remnants of their traditions spread all throughout the Pacific Islands, and notable pieces like broken shards of lapita pottery is a connection among the islands, including other pieces like obsidian tools and more. This expansion later on hit Solomon Islands, Vanuatu, Fiji, New Caledonia, then ultimately pausing in Samoa, and finally Tonga. Although debated, today the descendants of Tonga are theorized to have migrated further out east, then resulting in today's Polynesian lineage. Tonga can be concluded as a group of islanders who came from years of cultural migrations that later resulted into the beginning of Polynesian settlement. For now, we will pause here and entertain some more input that Ethan gathered for us.
Religion has always played a powerful role in shaping societies, especially during times of colonization. When European missionaries arrived in Tonga, they brought Christianity, which deeply influenced Tongan culture, traditions, and leadership. Some people believe it helped unite the islands and provide education and structure, while others argue it disrupted traditional beliefs and ways of life. This brings us to our second question. We asked another UH student, did Christianity during the colonization of Tonga bring positive or negative effects to the economy?
Hi, my name is Logan Higa, and I'm currently a senior at UH. I think when Christianity spread to Tonga, it brought both positive and negative effects on the economy. On one hand, the missionaries brought new forms of education, literacy, and connection to global trade networks. However, there were also negative impacts, one being traditional economic systems, including communal resource sharing and cultural practices that were tied to the land and labor were disrupted. Trade, in some cases, resources and labor were redirected towards supporting missionary programs rather than traditional community needs. Overall, Christianity played a major role in transforming Tonga's economy by creating new opportunities through education, structure, but also reducing traditional economic systems, which make the long-term effects a mix of both good and bad.
Following the questions that our interviewees got asked, we will dive into another portion of the historical settling that affects Tonga's history. Tonga has never been colonized by a foreign power and is one of the only islands that has remained their own sovereignty. However, during the arrival of European settlers like James Cook, this did impact the spiritual beliefs of Tonga, wherein they started to adapt and transition into a more westernized ideology of religion, specifically the introduction of Christianity to their cultures. Today in Tonga, Christianity has remained a widespread, with about 95% of Tonga having Christian faith, which can be concluded as a result of westernized exposure. Tonga later became a British protectorate in the 1900s. However, it has not been fully colonized, and still remains a constitutional monarchy. In 1970, Tonga no longer was held a British protectorate, while still holding their status of being the only monarchy in Polynesia.
Every culture has its own way of explaining how the world and its people came to be. These creation stories and traditional histories aren't just old tales. They're powerful tools that connect us to our ancestors and help us understand how people once viewed the world around them. By learning these stories, we gain insight into cultural values, moral lessons, and the identity of a community. They remind us where we come from and why certain traditions still matter today. So the question is, how can knowing creation stories and traditional history be beneficial?
Hi, my name is Matthew. I'm a junior here at UH. So I believe knowing creation stories and traditional history is very beneficial because it gives us a deeper sense of identity, purpose, and connection to our ancestors. They emphasize respect for the land and emphasize how we can care for nature and how we're not different from nature. We actually are just a part of nature. And understanding those beliefs can shape how we approach, how we treat the land today. And traditional history also has helped us appreciate different perspectives and understand how societies our past societies have developed today. And this can strengthen our cultural identity and builds empathy for those around us and helps us be more thoughtful in the choices we make today in the present.
To close this out, we can find importance in knowing history, like how legends and mythology are passed down through oral traditions and intimate conversations from our family and ancestors, along with historical facts being explored with years of effort and research. Though some perspectives may not overlap, these legends and research can be both concluded as significantly important as the stories passed down to us, keeping tradition alive, and the scientific research allows us to accurately know our genealogy, as well as helping us recognize the past and preserve our customs. Whether you believe Tonga was created through the legend story of the Great Tongaloa, or even the historical Lapita settling, both stories can coincide with them not overlapping. You don't need to believe both or argue that one is right or wrong, but instead acknowledge that two things can coexist because they both serve importance to Tonga today.
Again.